Are you looking to build a solid outdoor archery target stand? Stay tuned to learn how it's as easy as 1, 2, 3. Hey folks, welcome back to the channel. So today we're going to be building an archery target stand for this target right here. This is the Morrell Targets Cameron Hanes Keep Hammering outdoor rated target. So this is roughly a 30 by 30 target. It's rated for field points for crossbows and compound bows up to 380 feet per second. I picked this target up on Amazon for about 140 bucks, so I'll drop a link to that down in the description if you're interested in that. But before we get started on the target stand build, I want to give a shout out to fellow YouTuber Elk Shape. He created a video where he built an archery target stand for this very target, so we're kind of following his lead on this build. So to start with some of the materials, as I mentioned in the intro, this build is as easy as 1, 2, 3. So we've got one 8-foot 2x4, two 8-foot 2x6s, and then three 10-foot 4x4s. All of those are pressure treated lumber, so it will have good outdoor rating there. For the roof, I am going to repurpose this piece of wainscot tin that was left over from when we built the building for the cap there. And then as we get down here to some of the hardware that we're going to be using on the build today, so we've got some 4-inch construction screws that are coated. We've also got some 4-inch TimberLOK lag screws there. Those are 3/8 inch. Got some 4-inch carriage bolts with nuts, and then some eye bolts and S-hooks that we're going to use to actually hang the target from the stand. So all the materials for this build were right around 150 bucks. We picked everything up at Menards for just under that. So with that, we're going to get started with some cuts. Stay with us. So the first cut we're going to make is on one of the 10-foot 4x4s. So the two uprights on the target are going to be 6 foot long each. So that's the first cut we're going to make, is one of these 4x4s into 6 foot. And then the 4 foot that's left over from these two cuts will actually be the base of the target, or the skids. So we're going to start with this first 6 foot cut, and then we'll do another one just like it. So now that we have our two 6-foot uprights and two 4-foot base skids, how we're going to connect these two is actually using a lap joint. So I'm going to hog out part of this baseboard and part of this upright so we can overlap those with a lap joint. That's what we're going to do next. So I've got my upright 4x4 marked here with where I want to hog out some material for this lap joint. And I'm actually going to use my miter saw to do this. So on these miter saws, and this DeWalt in particular, on the back of the saw here is this little flip lever here, and this is actually the depth stop gauge. So when the saw comes down, you can adjust this thumb screw to bottom out on this depth stop gauge at whatever depth you want. So I measured already, so this bottoms out at 1 3/4 inches. So that way, when I start hogging out material on this 4x4, we'll be at exactly half, and our lap joint will fit perfectly then. So now I've got my 4-foot base, and I've marked out the center of this 4x4. And then I'm going to hog out enough material here for that upright lap joint to fit right in the middle of that. So we'll get to it. So with all these, we can just break these out of here, and then we'll just clean it up with the wood chisel. Okay, we have our uprights notched into the bases down there, and then we also made notches at the top of each upright so we could fit this 36-inch cross brace at the top, which will tie it together. And then we're actually going to come down 43.5 inches and hog out another section right in the middle here. And we've got another 3-foot 4x4 cross brace that's going to go in there. And that's going to actually hold most of the weight of the target on that cross brace, which is going to hang above it there. So that's the next thing we're going to do, is hog out those two sections there. The next thing we're going to cut is the leg braces, and we're going to use that 2x4. So we're going to cut each leg brace at 2 foot. So we'll get exactly 4 leg braces out of this 8-foot 2x4. So the next thing we're going to do with these 4 2-foot uprights is we're going to actually cut 45-degree angles on each end of them. That way when we go to mount them on the uprights, it will fit flush with the base and flush with the upright. So that's what we're going to do next here. Okay, we have test fitted all of our joints and made some last adjustments with the chisel so everything fits tight. So now we are ready to screw these together with these timber screws. So I am going to pre-drill a couple holes here and then sink these 2 4-inch timber screws in. All right, we'll flip it over and do the other side. Okay, next thing we're going to do is put the top brace in there and do the same thing we did with the last 2 timber screws there. The next thing we need to do is drill a 1/2-inch hole in this base so we can get the carriage bolt through, which will tie the upright to the base. So that's what we're going to do next here. Okay, the next thing we're going to do is attach our braces from the 2x4s between the upright and the base. So I have pre-drilled the holes there and already started the screws. So we'll go ahead and get this first one in. I did like scribe a line across the upright here just so we can kind of keep them at the same height. So I will hold that there and have Lee go ahead and sink this in. Okay, looks good. I like it. Okay, we've got our braces attached. The next thing we're going to do is cut a 2x6 for this top plate here that the bag is going to hang from. So I'm going to grab a measurement here. That is 32 3/8. So we're going to go ahead and get that cut out of this 2x6 and get that attached. Okay, we've got our top plate ready to screw in here, so we'll go ahead and get it attached. Looks good. Okay, we're getting ready to put our eye bolts through this top plate, but to get the vertical alignment correct, we went ahead and test fit the bag in here and measured. So we're going to come in 2.5 inches on each side and drill our hole, and then we'll secure our eye bolt there. So that's what we're doing next. Okay, we got all 4 eye bolts in and got the target set in here on the S hooks so we could kind of see how it fits. Pretty happy with how it fits in the space there. One thing to note, you'll notice there's a slight gap down here at the bottom of the 4x4. So like right now, if something hits it, it's got just a little bit of swing to it. And these grommets that are holding the target right now aren't really designed to hold all the weight of the target. So we really want the weight of the target on this 4x4 down here. So we've got a couple of options. We can lower our eye bolts so the weight gets down there. But the thing that I'm gonna do is actually, I'm gonna get like a 2x10 or a 2x12 and put it on top of this down here. And then the weight of the target will be on there, and as you can see right now, when I hit it, it's not moving. These aren't really holding weight, they're just keeping it from toppling over, which is ideal. And the nice thing about once I have a 2x10 or 2x12 shelf down here is, since this is not a broadhead rated target, I do have like a block foam target that I do shoot broadheads in. That can act as a shelf, so I can just take this target out and put my broadhead target right on that shelf. So having that extra board down there will be a nice added benefit for us, but overall, it's looking good. On to the roof. Okay, so we just test fit our roof here, which is essentially just a box built out of the 2x6s. So to start with, we took a measurement of outside to outside of these 4x4 uprights. For us, that was 39 5/8 inches. We knew we wanted this front board to cover the two side boards, so we added 1.5 inches on each side, which would be 42 5/8. And to make sure that we had enough room to slide over these uprights, essentially we made this board 42 3/4, so we gave ourselves a 16th of an inch wiggle room on that. So 42 5/8 is what we ended up on this board. And then we basically took what we had left over out of the 8-foot 2x6 when we cut this top plate. I think it was 64 1/2. We cut it exactly in half. So this board is essentially 32 1/8 inches long. So those were the measurements for our roof. We were just kind of mocking it up here to see what angle we wanted it at. So everything looks good. We're gonna go ahead and get this anchored in with some of those TimberLOK screws, and then we'll get the tin on the top, so stay with us. Okay, we have our roof attached, and we kind of have been test fitting this wainscot tin on there. Due to the size of this piece, there's really only one way this will fit effectively on here, and that's with the ribs going horizontally. Obviously, it would have been great if we could have had it going vertically for drainage, but it just fits this better this way, so this is the way we're going to screw it on. The front edge did kind of lip over a little bit there, which is fine, but otherwise things are going to line up. This bottom rib is going to hit this 2x6 perfectly. So we're going to go ahead and screw this down here. Okay, we ran to town yesterday and picked up a 2x12 for this shelf, so we're going to go ahead and get that cut and screwed down there. So we'll take a quick measurement. Looks like we're at 32 1/2. Okay, so we got that 2x12 attached on there, and I just grabbed this old block target that I shoot broadheads in just to kind of show how that would easily set on the shelf there. So if I want to switch that out, I could easily. But now we will grab the big bag. I'm going to have Lee help me here. And we'll get this set back in there. So there you can see the shelf has kind of helped holding this up. So these are just not really bearing any weight, but keep it from falling off, and it doesn't swing or anything. Okay, the last thing we're gonna do is use this last piece of 4x4 that was left over, and we're gonna build a cross brace between these two base legs. And this is gonna be kind of two-purpose, obviously, and we're doing this on the back side of the target, so when you're walking up to it, you're not tripping over it. But it's gonna keep these legs in square, and you could just put it right on top and lag it down, or lap joint it as well, but I don't want this one to be flush with the ground. I want this one to be up a little bit so I can hook onto this with like the four-wheeler and drag this and let these skids slide without this catching the ground. So what I'm going to do is just hog out about half of this on the end. So this will sit down in there about halfway. So we'll still have some ground clearance, and that will keep the distance between these two legs in square. So that's what we're going to do next. Okay, we got our back brace notched out. All that's left is we're going to pre-drill some holes and then put a few of these TimberLOK screws in.